The starting point of the Jameel Prize was the formation of the Jameel Gallery of Islamic Art at V&A, and this was generously funded by Abdul Latif Jameel and houses the V&A's superb collection of Islamic art, which they started in the 1850s. So the Jameel Prize is a step further from there, and it's a new showcase for contemporary art and design, and it reinforces the link between Islamic art and contemporary art and design inspired by this tradition. What's interesting about the prize is that even though the artists span such a huge geographic region, there are common threads and strands when you look around and wander around the exhibition. And I think that's because the common denominators between all of that is really the kind of basis of Islamic tradition.
I've been very interested in games and toys. And I like using that naivety and innocence in the toys to sort of delve into harsher conceptual ideas. The main sort of concept is to link a scattered deck of cards with the dispersion of a people, or more specifically, the Iraqi diaspora. I think actually Mahmoud Darwish said it perfectly in his poetry, where he said, "Who am I without exile?" And I think that is really the summary of this entire series and of who I am in a way. So I try to constantly combine these two cultures together, the East and West. I think that really comes out in my work.
I think for the Western viewer, by using humor, I want him to get into the miniatures and sort of start questioning the social and cultural issues. And in the process of looking at the details, I want him to sort of get into a world, and Islamic world, to which to some extent is more modern than preconceived notion of Islam. And for a Muslim viewer, I'm hoping that I sort of challenge the Muslim expectation of propriety. With my photographs, I try to sort of bring some kind of a two-dimensional depth into the images. It sort of creates a more two-dimensional, more contemporary image.
There are things about the tradition that I come from that I like and I admire and I respect. And there are parts of it that I reject. There's the same feeling towards modernity. We live in a modern time, whether we want it or not. It's a fun, lengthy process of going through literally hundreds of carpets, and look for shapes within the carpet that I can imagine as a three-dimensional model. I'd like to step back a little bit and talk about something that I call a hook. A hook is, to me, the immediate impression that you get from the work. So immediately you see architecture here, and then there is a tension, there is some sort of oddness, awkwardness about the work, and that's the gate to the other layers that I want to get to.
My work takes direct inspiration from the culture I come from, and also Islamic art and craft. Being an artist who grew up in the East, in a family home adorned with arts and crafts that are handmade and handcrafted, I was really accustomed to seeing decorative elements, elaborate decorative elements that are repetitive. But my Western schooling also, I think, supports that personal experience of living with material that's made in the East. And it is quite important for me to be able to bridge those two cultures.
This is, for me, is a very interesting thing. It's the relation between art and architecture and design. And this is, I believe, in the Islamic art, they were masters in this, to be able to make an artwork having a function and building a pattern or so. So it's combining really art and architecture and design together. You cannot separate the things together when you look for a house or a mosque. My work is focusing mainly on geometrical arts and geometrical patterns, and patterns for me is more a three-dimensional thing, just not to create a flat pattern or a two-dimensional pattern. I like the sculptural pattern. We are quite lucky that we have this heritage in our back. The ancient Egyptian great sculptures and art and patterns and colors and so on.
This is a very slow process, so it took me around 3 months, but with the help of other people. And when I was working almost 16 hours a day. Kashmiri shawl is about Kashmir. People suffering in Kashmir. There is a lot of violence going on. People who make this beauty, producing this beauty, are suffering a lot. And the ignorance. So this work is about the ignorance. The people on one side, they are, you know, the shawl is attracting them, but they don't think about the people who make these shawls.
Munir Shahrudi Farman Famayan is an Iranian artist in her late 80s who's had a very fascinating life. She grew up in Iran but left to go to New York in the 40s and 50s and studied at Cornell, where she was working as a fashion illustrator alongside Warhol. She returned to Iran during the cultural boom under Queen Farah Diba and was really pivotal in advising the governments on their collections of art. Her practice involves mirror mosaic, which is really a key part of Iranian architecture, and she's really inspired by a lot of the architectural sites around Iran. Munir has worked very closely with a mirror mosaic master and combines this with reverse glass painting. The work that we have exhibited as part of the Jameel Prize is inspired by the feathers left by sparrows on her balcony in Tehran.
The material is terracotta-fired bricks. I've been using it since I came from Karachi to Lahore for my studies. In Lahore, you find all the constructions in red bricks, but from where I belong, it's a city of concrete blocks. Where I belong, people are grown up with the dream of having home, and all of my work is around the concept of having home. In Infinity, I've made all the bricks with the hen and lifeline. I use molding and casting technique, and I hired some labor also because I want a precise size for every brick.
This series, the Felt Memory series, are very important to me because they are all about my memories from the Iran-Iraq war. I was far from my family and friends who were suffering, and I couldn't have any participation, and I couldn't enjoy the freedom that I had, and I felt absolutely useless, and I had a terrible guilty conscience about it. I tried to just to keep up a tradition and the production of felt, because felt is such a noble material. One of the main qualities of felt is being very resistant and to be very protective. Felt is a very protective material, and talismanic shirts from this concept of protection as well.
C'est un travail qui a permis de laisser une inscription contemporaine sur une mémoire de grands maîtres de mysticisme et du soufisme, donc depuis le 7e siècle. Et l'idée, c'était aussi de pouvoir parler d'une manière simplement graphique. Normalement, il y a 99 pièces, ce qui est une quantité énorme, et les dimensions sont immenses. Donc naturellement, il a fallu absolument avoir une équipe assez solide, structurée, et qui travaille sans arrêt. Ce que j'ai fait moi, c'est faire d'abord les premiers dessins, après faire les agrandissements à l'échelle réelle des pièces. C'est une technique très ancienne en Égypte, puisque l'origine date du temps des pharaons. Moi, je suis un artiste vivant aujourd'hui au 3e millénaire, et l'histoire se répète en permanence. Je m'intéresse au présent, me dire qu'on n'a rien compris au passé, Et je pense que ce travail sur la sérénité, sur la sagesse, sur la réflexion est important aujourd'hui. Ce qui est important, c'est qu'il y a des gens qui financent des projets pareils, qui financent un prix pareil et qui font qu'il y a un regard nouveau sur la culture du monde arabe contemporain. Et je pense que ce genre de manifestation nous permet de nous donner de l'espoir de continuer. Et aussi par rapport aux gens qui sont dans nos pays, aussi de dire qu'il y a des artistes qui les représentent mieux que le système politique du pays.